So we're going to get started, and I'm going to lend the floor here to Professor Aguilarakis. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone, good evening. Thank you for, I guess, the second half of this week with Ms. Eirini Linardaki zooming in from Greece. Thank you all for being here. This is Artivism, the Power of Art for Social Transformation. We are sponsored by Sync for Hope, Gottesman Libraries, a Teachers College, Columbia University, and Adelphi University. We have presenters here every week, usually every Mondays, but sometimes in a special case like this, we add a second one. I'd like to introduce our student ambassador for today. This initiative has a student ambassador program where we invite students at all levels, whether they are college, maybe even high school, graduate school, maybe we'll even move down to middle school. We invite them to attend our forum, get to know the organization, become comfortable in presenting, being out there, giving them a voice, right, and building their confidence. So today we have Jenna Massey, right? Tell me if I'm pronouncing it correctly. She is an honors college student at Adelphi University and a criminal justice major. I'll give it over to Jenna. She'll tell us more about herself.
Hello, thank you guys so much for having me today. So as Professor Aguilarakis mentioned, I am a criminal justice major and I'm also a Spanish minor. And for my project, I'm really working hard to work with kids and students of all abilities. So I did this in high school by participating in unified sports, which, just in case if you don't know, it's a program where peer athletes such as myself work with students of different disabilities, whether that be autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. And I was very involved, and I actually helped start the club at my school. So I was really happy when I came to Adelphi and I found out that we have a program called Bridges, which is essentially where I get to be a peer mentor to a fellow student who has some sort of undisclosed disability. So I'm actually haven't met with my my mentee yet. It's tomorrow, but we've been emailing back and forth a lot, and we have a lot in common. So for this semester, I'm gonna try to plan a bunch of events. Like I want us to go to the movies, and I want us to cook. Especially once I see like what this person's motor skills are like. I want them to be able to like practice like everyday things that are really important, because I think a lot of the times in school and especially college, people don't get to learn those things. And I also really want to be there for them as a friend. I made that like very clear to them. I'm super excited. I'm hoping to do like craft projects and get them involved in the criminal justice club. I wish we had an event a couple weeks ago called the Chalk Up event, and the Criminal Justice Club put all kinds of quotes and figures who have been monumental throughout history for social change. And I wish that I had known them then, because I would have invited them. But I'm really looking forward to being able to do that. RG, you're muted.
Yes. Now, Jenna, if you please introduce Ms. Eirini Linardaki from Greece.
Of course. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today. We also have a team of panelists that will later introduce themselves. Miss Eirini Linardaki was born in Athens and studied at LIT Limerick, Ireland, HDK Berlin, and Versailles. She lived in France for more than 20 years. She now shares her time between the island of Crete, Paris, and New York, developing projects in the public sphere. Her public art collaborations include the City of New York, the City of Newark, the City of Paris, the City of Montreux, France, the City of Heraklion, Agios Nikolos, and Chania in Greece. Communities are all at the center of my practice. Whether I involve elderly citizens, students, schools, or residents from specific locations, their participation, journey, and cultural heritage brings us to an exploratory path together that nourishes development of these public projects. At this time of historic global crisis, art is helping and serving people in their communities. I believe that right now in history, art is keeping pace with social change and can help youth to express themselves through projects and voice their view of the world. Sometimes persistent social issues knock on our door and enter our dreams, becoming a defining aspect of a youthful artistic vision. I experienced this throughout my research, my practice, and my journey. The complexity of these environments I witnessed in various communities, Baltimore Vocational High School, Bay Ridge School in Versailles, Lower East Side Girls Club became part of my work, expressed through channels found with my students, and generated new ambitions for the youth that share these experiences with me. Welcome, Mrs. Linardaki and team.
Thank you, Jenna. This is so sweet. I love the student ambassadors. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Adelphi University, Columbia University, I don't remember all the departments, Sing for Hope, Argy, Carolina, Stephanie, and Jenna for welcoming us to your group today. Welcome to our panel discussion to all of you. The title is Public Art as a Commune. I don't remember where the accent goes, Melanie. I'll have to ask again. I am Eirini Linardaki. I'm a visual artist. I'm the initiator of Occupy project that started in New York in 2020. I started as a cooperative residency, as a form of research team, as an experiment within an administration, the Greek Consulate General in New York, with support of the cultural services of the French Embassy in the United States. So looking at all of you, I feel like this is a 6 degrees of separation situation because I somehow connected to most of you here today. We're like the image of an informal network, which is something I discussed last month with my friends. Thank you all for being here. So let's go. Public art as a commune. A commune is an intentional community of people sharing space, interests, values, beliefs, and resources. We have many examples of when and how the art world was a form of commune with the synergy that allowed for creativity to transgress boundaries and to sometimes transform our world over and over again. Communes can be viewed, I believe, as a shared living space or as values, and many other things possibly. A most valuable field for experimentation and collaboration between artists and possibly communities. In these times of social change, as we were saying, and of transformation, artists, curators, communities are joining forces and occupying and claiming public spaces as both physical and metaphorical dimensions in which we can move forward together to develop maybe a more poetic and just society that reflects humane values and creates responsible citizens. In our discussion today, we will talk about how artists, curators, and their initiatives explore collaborations, communities, and synergies, how they foresee the impact of art within our society. Lastly, this is mainly a discussion about, and this is about a talk we had earlier, Melanie, about how art projects and initiatives can also create or structure communities. Finally, I want to announce you that next February, Occupy Art Project goes back to New York at the General Consulate of Greece and possibly some other spaces as its 3rd edition as Occupy Art Networks. This version will highlight network building and cooperative initiatives. Thank you for being here. First of all, I want to thank Aristides for being with us from, I think, New Orleans. Is that so? And Aristides Lovathetis is the executive director of ARC Athens. ARC Athens' mission is to provide opportunity and support to visual artists, curators, and scholars to further their research, to focus on bridging international dialogue, cooperation, and understanding. I am very, very proud to have been part of their virtual residency program last year, a program that ARC Athens created specifically to allow artists to continue their dialogue during these months of COVID. ARC Athens will be our partner in Occupying Networks next February, and I will ask Aristides if he wants to say a few words, and then we'll find some questions for him.
Thank you for the invitation, Eirini, very much. And thank you, Argy, for helping organize this. And Jenna, right? Thank you. Apologies in advance if the stream is choppy. I'm a guest And I hope the internet service is strong enough for this Zoom. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to our organization to see how it relates to the topic of today's discussion, the communes. We're not exactly a commune. We're in a residency center. And I, as a visual artist, had participated personally as an invited artist to a handful of residencies. And I had noted the need for such a program in Athens, Greece, because of some things that are self-evident to all of us. Some things that we know, such as the culture of hospitality that exists in Greece, which of course exists, I think, in every culture on the globe. Every culture is proud of their hospitality, so are the Greeks. The history of Greece, the landscape, the beauty, the colors, all these wonderful things we all know, but as well, the financial instability brought on by the crisis and the austerity, as well as the refugee, the migrant and refugee issues that were grappling the country at the time of our inception. We felt the combination of all those issues made Greece a very fertile and nourishing place for artists and curators to be immersed in and learn from and participate. So again, as an artist, I felt we had a unique position in understanding the needs of artists. So we created a program that not only gives our fellows the opportunity to come to Greece, but also the financial support, which I thought was elemental in any effort to provide opportunity. Money is really important for artists, especially artists and curators, especially if you're giving them an opportunity to leave their life for a while, you really ought to give them the financial support to be able to make this happen. So that was very important to us from the beginning. Because I had been an artist that was invited to participate in residencies that didn't offer financial support, and it was really difficult for me to swing it. So that is a very brief summary of our origin story. We were incorporated in 2017. We worked a lot on putting together a board and an advisory council. And I'd like to acknowledge an advisor who's here on this panel, Susita Guduna, who just went off. There she is. Thank you, Susita, for all the support.
Thank you so much.
We put together a board and advisory council, and with the rest of the staff, we were able to come up with our first year of programming in 2019, which I'm very proud of. We brought 2 curators and 2 artists in 2 different programs to Athens, Greece. And according to their testimonials, their experiences were life-changing. I know that all 4 of them had profound experiences in Greece, as we were expecting. And then after our first year of successful programming, of course, the pandemic hit. And we, like all of you, had to reimagine how we move forward. So we created the virtual residency program. And we have a couple fellows from that program on this panel, Eirini Linardaki and Eleni Riga. Eleni is curator, Eirini is visual artist. And I think maybe they can attest to the benefits of that opportunity. Presently, we are going to continue the virtual residency because whether or not there's a pandemic, it just proved to be a really poignant way of creating relationships. Not only just the opportunity that we're able to give these fellows, but the experience of being involved in this virtual residency, I think, was so positive that we're going to continue this program even were the pandemic to go away. But we are planning our another physical residency in the fall of 2022. We will be announcing an open call of applications in January for that residency to continue to bring people to Athens, Greece. I think that gives you a little bit of an introduction as to who we are without getting into real depth. I know that there are several other panelists that want to share things. So having given you this brief introduction, I'd like to be led by Eirini or whoever else has questions if we want to get into depths about how these how we create community by initiating these activities. Should I continue just talking? Or
No, I'm here.
You want to get more specific about where you want this to go?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce everyone shortly, and then everyone can do, like you, a little statement, and then I'll get you all together. I'm writing down which question goes to who so that we can drill you all in the end. This was perfect. Thank you. Next one is Olga Harzidaki, who called dibs on being second earlier today. So that's how it works. She's a dear friend. She's an imaginative and plural curator who has expanded on several public art projects who are anchored within communities she works with. I have seen her work. I have seen her take over entire neighborhoods, and most recently, even my city on Crete. But I know that she wants to talk to us about a project with students from Hamburg, which I know very little about right now. So she's going to tell us. Hello, Olga.
Hello to everyone. I'm happy to be among such wonderful colleagues and happy to get to know more of you. I would briefly like to share my current project, which is highly considered a community project that has been developed. I have been developing this project in dialogue with the School of Fine Arts in Hamburg before the pandemic. It began as a dialogue with Valentina Carga, an artist I have been collaborating since past projects and is now teaching there. She's at the School of Design. So we began this dialogue about the possible, this is how the community project developed, as an initial dialogue about a perspective, a potential visit to Tavros, a highly underlooked Athenian neighborhood that is so far non-gentrified and hopefully remains for a while, a true and real neighborhood. And this idea was considered really interesting and was at an early stage agreed to be supported. So then Valentina, who had her group of students of mixed ages, invited another professor, Jesko Feser, who is also at the design studio. They have an experimental design studio who has a long history with participatory design projects, not just in Hamburg and Germany, but in different cities. And so, yeah, this is how it all started. That was in the initial stages in 2019. And these two groups were meant to travel to Tavros for 2 weeks to intensively visit schools, walk in the neighborhood, meet locals, meet small communities and find ways to interfere with the daily rhythm, problems, needs, reality of the neighborhood. Of course, this got postponed and postponed and postponed and postponed up to a certain point where we decided to split the two groups. And now I'm going to tell you how the project has been realized in the recent months. So together with Valentina, we decided to experiment on doing this remotely with her students. So how can you do a community project at a distance during the pandemic? That was an interesting question. But the reality proved quite interesting because a community project usually means finding the right partners who are locals and who have things to bring to the table. So we collaborated with the municipal library, and the person at the library was super open and joined the online meetings with specific requests. So we started the students actually in discussion with Mariana, the librarian, and me as a curator, and of course Valentina, who is the professor of the group. The students started designing some aspects for the library, for an existing library, which could improve the daily presence of this small infrastructural and social place, add value to it, make it a more vivid place, especially during COVID times. And we kind of developed this project at a distance, but it truly made sense actually. And the community was, well, the community of students were not present at Tavros, but a community was still created, and the community was also an international community, let's say, because the program was joined not just from the people in Hamburg and the locals in Tavros and me, but then it proved that because there was so much effort to this project to really give things to the library, it ended up having people from, for instance, Delhi, from Goethe Institute, who are our partners in supporting the project, but in Athens. But we had even people from Delhi, Goethe, sending us rare books for the library, which would convert this library to a more open and accessible library for the people who speak Urdu in the neighborhood, for instance, and we were unable to locate these books elsewhere, or other people, other bookstores in Athens and other places donating books. So we had a very expanded sense of community. Unfortunately, the students were not present during the stage of materializing their ideas. And at the moment, so this project took place during the spring and summer months of 2021. And at the moment, I have Yeskos is a group in Athens, in Tavros, which seems like incredible, like beyond imagination, because this, as I said, began as an idea before the pandemic, and so often we had to postpone and really question the meaning of doing this. If these people would be able to travel all the way to Tavros and work. And our partner for this group is a primary school in Tavros, a really open and diverse and multicultural school. We have since Tuesday, actually, ever since they arrived, we have been spending most of our days there, discussing with the headmaster, the vice headmasters, the students, the teachers, everyone basically, and also other people from the neighborhood who are explaining us how this neighborhood works, what the school needs, and how these students can really make things, because they are designers, and what they do is through design, which is social design essentially, they make a true effort to improve the social conditions of a place. So for the next 10 days, our goal is to really add something valuable and give something that the students can really enjoy, and for their daily infrastructure, educational needs, social needs, and all the things that a school can contain. I don't want to keep on. It's a very big project and there are many people, so I'm happy to respond to any comments about this project.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you. This is a great project and it's one of many. We'll come back with questions after. Next is Alexandros Georgiou and Jennifer Nelson. Alexandros, who I know very well, is a very dear friend. He's an artist that I admire a lot for his dedication, for his sensibility as a human being. He's part of my informal network of friends and artists in New York. Today, Alexander and Jennifer have joined us to tell us a few words about guerrilla optimists. I don't know if I pronounced guerrilla correctly, sorry. Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Alexandros.
Okay, hi, and thanks for inviting us to this meeting. I'm sorry, I'm not used to Zoom meetings. I don't know how to say all the wonderful guests and all that, and how, but definitely it's great. And we, with Jennifer, it's called guerrilla, as in guerrilla, like fighting from the mountains, and optimists. It was a group we started in 2006 with Jennifer and Toby Short, who's a British artist living in Greece. And our actions took place in public spaces in Athens that are kind of like central, but people didn't care that much about them. And somehow I thought that's why we're invited, but then I realized we're invited because we're close friends from New York and we go to galleries together. So it's a good thing that at least we do something in public as well. And Jennifer has prepared like a small sort of presentation of what we're doing in Athens, which is not so, like we were working with very little money, and also we didn't record what we did. We were more into like doing the actions instead of kind of like documenting them or photographing them or even like talking about them to anyone. So, but apparently there are some videos. I actually didn't know. And some photos too. So Jennifer Nelson is an American artist, and she's kind of great. And she works in education for many years and at DV for right now. And she speaks better English than me. Do you want to take it from here?
Okay. Yeah, thank you everybody for, it's great to be here. As Alexandra said, yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to show a couple of, we started these projects really as a way to, it was a way to keep ourselves together, actually, sort of psychically. In Athens, there seemed to be, everybody was acting so optimistic, but actually there was so much despair on the streets and in our lives and economically, and we wanted to find ways to keep a practice together with humor and in touch with the city, with what we thought was sort of the truth of the city, and so we began these improvisational actions. They had no goal of surviving. They had no goal of promoting ourselves or any question like that. It was really just this chance of creating a studio space in the city together in an improvisational way. And we would take with our 2007 version of telephones, maybe one image and write a little something about it, more as like a diary. So I'm going to just share you guerrilla optimist style a couple of things if I share my screen here. So let's see if I can do that. Share. So these are just a bunch of things that we were doing. And I think the thing that I wanted to talk about was how the actions were these energetic actions for these very neglected spaces. This was an apology to the pigeons. We worked a lot in Ammonia for many years in Ammonia. We worked for an entire year with a group of people, a lot of different artists, trying to work with the collective unconscious and dream in public spaces. We tried to fly in each other's dreams and that way maybe change the dynamics of Ammonia Square. With Toby Short, we did this project where we gathered up all of our friends. We're both immigrants ourselves, but privileged immigrants. We gathered all immigrants from many different locations who lived in Athens, and we sang, we learned together, we did singing lessons and practiced the national anthem, and then we sang it out in front of the Supreme Court together. And what was really interesting actually for that project was that we did really make community at that time. Everybody handed out a visiting card of something they thought people wouldn't have known. So these are 4 little cards people wrote. And even though we were all really sort of alienated from the national anthem of Greece, by singing together, we formed a community of joy, actually. And what else? This was we cleaned garbage and made sculptures out of garbage. And during this was a word I learned in Greece, theopragmatepsis, which means say yes to everything. During the 2015 demonstrations, we were blowing horns as a meditation. This is Rosina Ivanova, an artist, and Natalia Papadopoulou. We worked with several different people in Alexandros, and we blew horns through toy horns with an ongoing breath as far as we could breathe for an hour or so in front of the parliament for many, many days. We did that for about a year. So we did these kind of lengthy engagements with places, maybe making a small change in the associations or images people have with those spaces, but also as a way to survive. We also worked in places of public exclusion, like the psychogeriatric facility in Athens. This was with, we made projects with them, blowing horns also and instruments, or making a mandala out of flowers with them. We worked in jail, and so that's just a variety. I know you all there's lots of things to say, so I just...
Hold on, I'm counting. We still have
time.
Half a minute. For 5 minutes. And our future actions is basically to do an action. Like, we're completely not doing anything. I mean, we lost one of our members. We have like others. Toby left the group because he couldn't make any money out of it and he was struggling. I mean, we may have left the group as well for the same reasons. But
no, I think that's a sort of an important part of it. We were working in these exhausting situations with nothing really coming back. But at the same time, it did give us a lot of support psychically and working together. And I think over the many years that we worked, the actions actually they become a kind of history that's meaningful.
And so have we become history. All right.
Yeah. So
I think that's all our time. That's 5 minutes, if anybody cares.
Thank you for this. Thank you. I don't
If you
think
have
there
any
are tiny
questions,
actions. We'll come back with questions we have to
yes.
think about, because, I know Alexander Fardo, how many years I found about Guerrilla Optimist last week. So, next guest is Susita Guduna, who's a very good friend. She's a curator. She was part of Occupy 2, and she'll be with us for Occupy 3. Susita single-handedly created Greece in USA. I have seen her dedicate herself. Body and soul. That's how we say, right? In helping, connecting, and promoting so many artists. Many Greek artists, obviously in New York, but many artists in general. Most recently, through Greece in USA, she created 2 massive exhibitions, The Right to Silence and The Right to Breathe. Susita, you bring together many people, which is also a form of creating communities. Would you like to talk to us?
Yes, thank you, Eirini, for inviting me to participate, to Occupy, and also to participate in this panel, and the organizers, of course. I'm in the office, so I will be brief a bit. I'm sorry. We started Greece in USA in the first stage. It was during the confinement, so that defined a lot of the processes and the practices, since we worked for the visibility of contemporary Greek art, but unfortunately people couldn't travel. So we had the virtual reality like we did with Occupy, and we had to find different means of presenting art. And now slowly, we are starting with site-specific interventions in the city of New York. We recently did something with Jenny Marchetu at the one of the oldest courthouses for women prisoners in West Village at Jefferson Market Prison. And it was called Readings in Silence, a selection of texts related to confinement. So the first project was about social justice. We worked at, we always find venues that we think are related or location-driven projects, or related to the sensitivity of our approach. So it was CUNY, the College of John Jay for Criminal Justice. And we are interested, of course, in the educational aspects. And we slowly, and now we're developing more integrated projects by inviting artists to New York to explore New York and decide what would be their ideal way of interacting with the city. Our model is also inspired by Performa Biennial, where I am affiliated and have worked for a couple of years. So the second project was The Right to Breathe, again in the same cycle of social engagement. It was, you remember the protests of New York and the killing of George Floyd. And to conclude, the idea is that we want to break the stereotype about Greece, Greek identities, nationalities. So the first years we tried to invite artists to address issues that are more international and that are that concern American artists. And a lot we have our programming for this year involves inviting curators and other art professionals to engage with many different subject matters. Thank you for your understanding. I'm in a venue that it's not silent.
Thank you, Susita. Thank you. You do manage to reach us, though, every time from somewhere, walking in the street. You're always with us in the end. So that's what matters. Thank you. Next is Shaniha. Shani is a visual artist. She was part of Occupy 1 and she'll be part of Occupy 3. I invited Shani because we always discuss together on how we can connect. We always start about how we can connect people we meet in different places, how we can connect humans, artists, curators, and to find ways to connect projects and promote cooperation as a method. So we're always talking about this and how we can continue doing this. She has worked in public art projects both in the United States and in France. One recent project I saw as an example is a sculpture project, an installation she made in the school where she went as a younger French, I don't remember the city. It was near Paris, but I can't remember.
No.
Welcome, Shani.
Thank you, Eirini. Hi, everyone. Hi, familiar faces. It's great to be here. And I guess I'll get in and start talking a bit about the practice and how that idea of the commune and community for me comes from that question of relation, creating relation and contact within human people, viewers, artists, whichever form the presence take. The first actually project I did at the consulate with you, Eirini, was for your solo show. And you invited me to present a performance, which actually turned into two performances, one public and one private. To reach, so that's a series of sculptures that's called Embody, that are relational sculptures that are shape that are in constant metamorphosis and that need to be inhabited and activated by either a collaborator, performer, the public. It takes different places, and it's always a very open-ended protocol when there is a protocol. So those form for me interested as sculptural form. They become spaces because the body can enter them, but they also become those sort of relational spaces and forms that I can exchange with, from an invitation I will get and extend to a performer that will take the space I was first invited to take. So there is often that idea of taking space, making space, sharing space, and seeing how that can fit within sculpture, within performance, and public arts. So for Occupy 1, I presented, I occupied the Visa Room, which I think is an interesting space to start with. And I presented, which is still here, still there, during installation that is a discussion with Ovid's Metamorphose. So the metamorphose, and in relation to that idea of collaboration, is often central in my work. And for Occupy 3, I will continue to occupy spaces and continue to extend those invitations. So I'm interested in seeing how we can, how do you say, like take the thread a bit, like tirer le fil. I don't have the expression in English, but yeah, extend the invitation. And again, that idea of sharing the space that is given and activating it in a way that creates encounters, creates relations, creates discussion. We'll be thinking about performances. We'll be thinking of what it means for our bodies to be there. How do we occupy that space, that public space where we invite it to take place, but how does that translate in different spaces and public spaces also? Yeah, I think that's covers the beginning of what Occupy 3 will become, and it will take different shape. I'm really excited about it, and I don't want to say too much because in my work things happen in relation, so those forms will emerge from these discussions and this relationship to the space also. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Shani.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Natasha Katerinopoulos. Hi, Natasha. Natasha is a New York-based arts manager and producer. She's originally from Greece. She's from Crete. She's managing director of the Performing Arts Community Center, the Center at West Park. She also works as an independent producer for projects presented in theaters, museums, and public spaces worldwide. Thank you for being with us, Natasha. If you would like to share some things with us.
For sure. Thank you for the invitation. It's lovely to be here. So initially, I was going to speak a little bit about the center, which I will in a second, and then focus on how I work as an independent producer with artists who have worked with various public spaces and how this has informed my thought process on who gets to create public art in public spaces, how communes are formed, and how this relates to who creates public space, who maintains it, who is a stakeholder, and who's invited in it. But the way the conversation is going, I don't think singular examples of individual projects make sense. I wanted to talk about Maria Hasabi's 1-month residency at Center Pompidou when we were at the basement courtyard of the museum, and how that being a public space informed the project very much, and my understanding, as it attracted from people just wandering around, people who came to see the museum, but also homeless people, children of the neighborhood. But I think I'll focus more on the center and what we do here, and how the pandemic has changed the structure of the company, the organization, and made it not a commune, but more community oriented than it was before. So the Center at West Park is a nonprofit organization. It's based at the Upper West Side. It is housed in a New York City landmark, West Side Presbyterian Church. It's 4 blocks of space, and it houses a sanctuary, which is our theater, 3 dance studios, 2 visual artist studios, and 2 nonprofit organizations that are tenants, but are not affiliated necessarily with the work that we do, Russian Arts Theater and Studio and Noche Flamenca. Up to before the pandemic, the center had a very standard residency and presenting program of providing artists from New York City free space, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. at our sanctuary, which has a capacity of 299 and is sanctuary, right? So it's a tall space, like a 3-story space, but tall. And basically had a financial structure of minimal box office, rentals, and a few grants. So as you can imagine, when the pandemic hit, that changed because we could no longer occupy that space for a very long time. And throughout that time, and also listening to what was happening around us, all the movements that started blooming at that time, or that we became aware, may have been blooming for a while, myself and the artistic director really shifted the way the organization works, which I am now realizing as a concept through your projects and your talk. So thank you very much. So very early on, we realized that the only thing that we could provide to our community, the artist community of New York, is space. That's what we have. We have an enormous space that was uninhibited for a while. And we had a lot of artists whose projects had been canceled, who needed rehearsal space, who were in their tiny New York rooms waiting to see what's next and getting canceled all around. So as soon as the media production guidelines were issued by the governor of New York, basically putting the film industry back to work with COVID restrictions, we used that to start a virtual residency from our space. And instead of inviting artists or going through a regular process of open call with questions like, how are you going to use our light grid? What does your budget look like? What's your team consist of? Do you have a set? We shifted more towards, how is this important in your life right now? What could you do with a space like ours? How many people are you willing to invite to work with you so they could be creative and use this space? How does this benefit your practice long term? And can you create anything from 5 minutes to evening length that could be presented through a platform that we can provide? That was the first residency of fall 2020. We had a 20 people capacity in a 299 space and very strict guidelines. And it was amazing what came out. Through the time that this was taking place, we also decided that the top-down structure of our organization didn't work, where our executive director left. The artistic director and I decided that we are no longer using that model. Then we worked with our board to create a more linear governance structure. At the same time, we realized through looking outside of our windows or being in different spaces and streets that we're at the Upper West Side and we've been serving the Upper West Side, but there's a lot of other people around us and above us who need spaces more than our neighbors. So we started curatorial program for the residency, which included people who had never been curators in the past, but were blooming, were from emerging to mid-career, like artistic process, and had a network of people that had no idea we existed around New York City, could benefit from space, and had a bunch of stuff to show. So we engaged Deborah Ann Bird, who is mostly working in Harlem, or is based out of Harlem, founded Shakespeare Harlem Company. We engaged Elliot Reed, who's more in performance and partly visual art, who was a Studio Museum of Harlem artist in residence. And we engaged Melanie Green, who's a choreographer, to come in and basically work with us to spread the word out and work with our artistic director in a structure that would bring people in and let them know of our space and make it useful to them. We also, for the second residency, provided streaming and more technical equipment as our financials started going back to shape. That is a structure that we will be continuing to use for our next season. We're actually just had a curatorial meeting and we're looking towards emerging arts festivals in music, theater, and dance, so we can get more people in and provide them with space. We also started working more closely with our tenants when we realized that we are in a 130-year-old landmark, which will not behave on its own. So we need to be working closely with the people that are there to make it work, to make sure that the equipment doesn't go out or that the locks are working after 6 months of inactivity. And we realized how much we had in common with them. We invited them to perform at our space. We invite them to perform at our galas, and we have a much closer collaboration. We talk about our needs in a more constructive way. And to be continued is just, I am now realizing how much more the pandemic gave us and how much more inclusive and how much more community we have become. And I'd like to speak with other people that have residencies here to see maybe if we have common threads or how our community projects could evolve in collaboration.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you. I mean, I see already that we're all thinking about how these things have shifted to create better communication, better cooperation, and make space for inviting new ideas within our initiatives. Thank you. Next is Melanie Levick-Parkin, who I know is hiding somewhere because she has a cold. Ha ha ha. Melanie is my partner in crime, I wrote, in many projects, and Sleepless Nights, because I call her every time, not only I don't know how to pronounce something, but also if I try to write something down. She and I had the conversation earlier where she was saying, I don't really do public art. Yet I said, but through your research, through your PhD, you have created and addressed a feminist community, a community of women, and more specifically, the lives of women artists and women who make. I understand that was your research, and we have talked about it extensively. I know she has a cold. If you don't want to talk, Melanie, you can just say hi.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's funny though, because you say that about pronouncing things. It's normally me who doesn't know how to pronounce something. But between us, we can make ourselves understood. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just interesting having that conversation because obviously I'm involved in lots of communities, and actually I see my primary role as someone who facilitates for other people. So for me, it's really important to create space for other people. I feel quite passionate about that, but it can also sometimes feel like a thankless task because there's so much energy that goes into that. And it's quite difficult to then find space for yourself within that as well. But this particular project that Eirini was talking about, it's a project called How Women Make. And actually, I almost wrote that project in order to have space for myself as well. But it's about hanging out with women and talking to women about their process. And I got together quite a diverse group of women, 12 different women from, a couple of different countries, different age groups, different socioeconomic backgrounds, but really they were connected through friendship groups, and not necessarily always directly through me, but through other people. And what was interesting that those women, because I interviewed them, I didn't just interview them, I spent time with them to really ask them about their practices and observed them and recorded them, and then had conversations with them about their practice. And what was interesting was that the different stories that women were telling, when I was actually sat afterwards with all these stories that I had collected, there were so many things that were entangled with each other and intertwining, and the themes that were emerging out of that were just quite universal in a way, even though they were so specific. And I think within that, it was even said, actually, there is a community there, even though that community is in the same space. And I think it's that making other people within that visible to each other. Sorry, I think I'm freezing.
No, you're good.
Is that all right? And I think it takes that reminding yourself that making those connections and making them visible. And also, some of the women who participated in that project, they didn't want to kind of really put themselves forward, because they would always rather recommend somebody else who had a really interesting making practice. And, it's really funny. I don't know if that's a very specifically female thing, in terms of you'd be going, oh, you're doing this really interesting thing. It's like, yeah, but look at what my friend's doing. And so it's that kind of encouraging people to stay with it and to actually talk about what they're doing. It was quite difficult, that was, in a way, because they would just go, oh, it's the thing I do. So that shining a little bit of a light onto it was quite a privileged position to be in, and to be part of that. And as I said, I did also write that project to make space for myself, because I felt like I had, after raising kids, having a full-time job, doing all these other things, and I hardly ever had time to actually just hang out and talk about making things and make things, because I was also co-making with those women. So they would kind of get me to make whatever they were making. And so I had to go myself at things that I knew nothing about, which I always really enjoy, even when I'm not very good at it. So yeah, so that was kind of the bit I managed to get out of that.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you. I forgot to present you properly. She is a professor of design at Sheffield Hallam University.
No, I'm not a professor. I'm a doctor.
Oh no, you're the course leader. That's it.
Yes, yeah, program leader. It's different in the UK. You're not allowed to call yourself a professor until you're a professor.
I'm not a professor, so that's good. Thank you, Melanie. Our next guests are Gloria, Lucca, and Anna Kuhn. Did I pronounce it correctly? I'm really sorry if I butchered it. So I just met Gloria last week. They're both artists and organizers of Virus Diary, together with Dan Przowski, who is my friend, and I learned about the project through him. So he's a good friend. He couldn't be with us today, and I understand that now it has become a collective project, or it has been since the beginning. As artists, we had the chance to participate in Virus Diary, which was a very large project. Similarly to other initiatives here, I think it was specifically linking artists during the pandemic through communication, through photography and other modes. I remember that it was during the darkest times of the pandemic, because it was when we were also leaving our shoes outside the house, not inside the door, outside the house, because that's what we took photos of. Could you tell us a few words about your project and the collaborators of the project?
Of course. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We were thinking that would be best to allow Anna to speak first, because she was among the first participants in the project. So the project was initiated by the Romanian artist Dan Przowski, who was supposed to have an exhibition at the White Gallery in Cluj. And shortly after the exhibition was canceled due to the pandemic, he started inviting artists. So Anna was among the first ones, and would be great to allow her to speak about the online experience of daily posting artworks to like be together. And then I'll continue after.
Thank you. Hi, Anna.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me. It was just as Gloria stated, it started from Przowski's personal exhibition that was supposed to happen but it was the global lockdown. It was the end of March, and he started to post online the way that he always does on Facebook, just on the White Cube, that the Artist Run Space Facebook page. And this Artist Run Space, just a quick word, is the artist who's running it is Alina Andrei, and she was one of the first guests. So for it ran for 9 weeks. And the first week it was just Dan's drawing, and then the second week he invited George Roșu, which is also an artist from Romania, and then the third week he invited Alina Andrei and myself, and then from the fourth week on it grew exponentially. It kind of blew up. An all-time high of artists would be 22, but contributors, we don't know exactly how many. So very many contributors who were sending photos, videos. When the lockdown was lifted, for some of us, they would post photos from the outside world, who by that time it had changed a lot. Gloria, for instance, she was going through neighborhoods and she was posting photos from there. It was very touching to see how this online community grew, and we kind of got to meet artists that we might have never met otherwise. And of course, Petrovsky is very good with that because he knows so many people. He's very open and very, he likes to share, to connect people. He's very, very good at that. And he, we talked, we always recommended like people that we liked, artists that we liked, or just people that we noticed they were posting online drawings or videos or photos or whatever thoughts on the pandemic. And we would talk about it as a group, this group of 4. And then most of the time, Petrovsky will write to them personally and invite them to the project, or Alina would, Alina Andrei. So this is how it grew so much, so quickly. It was very generous of him to use his notoriety, you know, to ask people to participate. It really helped us a lot, the contributors firstly, but also other people from what I've talked to. It really helped us to feel that we are not alone, and that it's very interesting. I will just post a link from the last week. So you can see just how diverse the is not just one topic. There are tons of things happening in just 1 week, and some subjects are you know, better formulated by others than the ones that started. And so all this sharing of, I don't know, data, but also just this general feeling that we are really in this together. But of course, this has later become different. It had a different meaning. So by the time of the ninth week, when we got there, it was the lockdown was lifted. It was I think in May, and it was just it was going for so long, and it was exhausting to Alina Andrei most of all, because she was coordinating everything. So she got all the images, and she was just posting nonstop. And in the later weeks, she was posting day and night and answering people, and all these things were really exhausting. But it was also a sense like we want to get out of the house and, you know, take a break from the online world that was the real world for so many weeks. I'll leave that to Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
I was thinking that right when the pandemic hit, I think I just moved to Madrid for I don't know 3 months earlier or something like this. So when the pandemic came, because I was in Madrid and the situation was like really bad at the beginning here. It was one of the hotspots of contagion of COVID. I was intrigued, forced, somehow dragged into the question: what is the pandemic trying to teach us? What is the pandemic trying to, I don't know, to show us and even to us as artists, as visual artists, what we couldn't show through images to the world that we have to change. So somehow this project was, as Anna said, was really important in the sense of being connected, although all the projects went down because of the lockdown. But it also meant an opportunity to reflect on how we are producing art, how we are relating to the world, and in this sense, the Virus Diary project, although it was like an online project at the beginning, it became something more like it became like a community that shared knowledge, insights, all sorts of dynamics that helped us, and it also became it became a good opportunity to learn from each other through this project. So I'm going to share now the screen because I have a collection of images I want to show you. Okay, it's this one. Do you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So my role in this project, and the reason why this project will be relevant to the whole discussion, is that I stepped into this project not only as a participant but also as an organizer. We wanted to exhibit the whole project in posters in Romania, where the gallery that initiated the project is based, but we ended up with the exhibition in Madrid shown for the first time because of the many restrictions in Romania and so on. So I was an artist, but also a participating artist, but also the mediator of this project. We exhibited the posters in weekly contributions, each poster with contributions from the respective week, from the first one to the 9th week of the project. We didn't intervene neither in the order, or we just let everything in the show, and the reason why I was thinking this is important, relevant to this discussion on the commune, is that I somehow tried to connect an art gallery from Romania with this space in Madrid, which is a totally independent art space. It's called ABM Confecciones, and this formerly in the 80s, here it was a small fashion factory, but when the artist came, the logo and the name, which is ABM Confecciones, was still at the entrance of the building. I will show you images right now. So I will make this brief. I wasn't sure how long this will be, but the idea is that after we did the exhibition, in which we displayed the posters like in the vaccination rows. At least in Spain, there are like so many people trying to get vaccinated that you had to wait in line. So we tried to like create this corridor with the contributions, which of course contain images related to social issues, not only to the artist's own world or interests, but this is one of my favorites. It's Eirini's and Vincent's image from exactly when the pandemic was, the lockdown was really tough on us due to the numbers of deaths and contagions. And we also managed to organize here a short workshop with some students from Luxembourg. And this collaboration was possible due to, thanks to another Romanians who collaborate with an institute in Luxembourg, an institute of education. So they literally came to Madrid 2 weeks ago so that I would give them, I would run a workshop for the children. And this also became interesting because at the beginning of the of the virus diary project, no one could anticipate where this collaboration would lead. So it led to an exhibition in Madrid and not in Romania, and to a workshop with students from Luxembourg. Yeah, so it really created the sense of community, of being together and sharing whatever we have, or better said, whatever others in our group needs, either knowledge, resources, I don't know. Yeah, so this is the virus diary made short.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Anna. This is an amazing project. It is, and I know many people were involved in it. I'm really sorry for my Greek friends because it's very late here, and I don't know how late it is in Anna. Are you in Romania? It's the same. It's the same time. Is it? Yes.
Yes, it's
oh
almost 1 a.m.
Okay, we're gonna. I'm sorry, but this is also interesting. Next is Francois Tibor, who is also an artist of our team. He was in Occupy 1, and now he's part of the organizers of Occupy Networks, Occupy 3. He's a fantastic collaborator. He has an extensive practice in public and collaborative projects. Hello, Francois Tibor. I hope he is.
I am here.
I can see.
I am here.
Would you like to tell us a few words?
Yes, thanks for this meeting, and thanks for you to be so late with us. At the beginning, Aristide asked about why we are doing community, and I assume the first reason is obviously necessity. We are all facing very difficult times by COVID, or even by our daily life, like as an artist, and so we can either help by structure as you show up to us by the different intervenants, but as well we can do by ourselves, by occupy, for example, a public space, as Alexander and Jennifer used to do in Athens during crisis that Greece have to face. And so by this kind of proposal, definitely I assume, like as an artist, we are showing to the other citizen people, to other citizen, we can demonstrate the fact that we can occupy the public space, our space, and definitely it's another way to be more how to say, to be more accurate citizen, and to be more strong to face different difficulties that we could face during our life and our practice as an artist. And by the way, otherwise, I would just, the word commune remind me another history fact in the French history is la Commune de Paris, that occurred in 1871, and probably in the modern history, the first times that quite large part of the population decide to administrate by themselves, and to develop a new kind of rule and new kind of reason and opportunity for themselves without any hierarchy. And it was definitely a revolution times at the end of the 19th century. And from this event, I mean, from this political event, a new political way developed in Europe and probably further. And so I don't know if it could be a new kind of knowledge that we could develop for our project for Occupy number 3. And so definitely I'm really looking forward to be involved in more in New York in next February with all of you.
Thank you, Francois Tibor. We have 2 more people to present, 2 friends. This is wonderful because we've seen all these amazing projects, and we'll have everyone at Occupy 3 anyways with us, and we'll talk more about everything. Eleni had to go. I'm really sorry, but we have Eleni Riga. I don't know how to make the things. Eleni Riga is an independent curator, but she's also my go-to person when I need motivation. She has extra lipstick today, so I have to applaud that. I can't say enough about her understanding towards me and towards all the artists who surround her, and her engagement towards all of us. She was the art director of Initiator Project at Elefsina European Capital. She's done numerous other prestigious projects. That's where we met at Elefsina, and since then she was involved in many other projects. I did, friends of mine did. She initiated some very interesting conversations in Occupy, among them how an artist becomes citizen. That was very close to our topic today. She's also a collaborator and a fellow of ARC Athens, and officially a member of Occupy Project since the beginning. As you can see her performing Stargazer by H.D. Kepler on our invite for tonight, laying over the copy maker at the consulate. Hello, Eleni.
Hello everyone. Thank you for this kind invitation and for including me in this conversation. I'm basically Eirini Linardaki's wing woman, and I feel that after this introduction I have to do something super amazing, but I have to say it's super late. So I'm really happy to be here with you. Jokes aside, I think that's an important conversation that we should maybe take the time to do under different circumstances. I actually would prefer not to do a long presentation and focus in specific projects. I don't think that it would serve what we are doing today, or at least at this point, but I have some reactions to the things that have been said before. I was wondering at the beginning, except of being the wing woman of Eirini, what else is my role here? And it was funny when Melanie said that, you know, I'm not doing public art exactly. And it was the way that I felt as well. But then I was trying to interpret what Eirini had in mind when she put us together. And I was thinking that the nature of my practice has a lot to do, requires actually, it's fundamental and necessary to have a community, to foster a community and a collaboration. So that being said, just to break it down, I work a lot with education, especially adult public and activation of public spaces, often with the local communities involved very much in the process. I work with social justice projects involving feminist and ecofeminist and ecological groups. And last but not least, I work a lot, not only with visual artists, but performing arts. So when I break this down, I can understand why maybe that's a conversation that would make sense to me. The other part that I wanted to mention before is that I've been working in institutional and independent space, and usually I had my day work, which was an institution, blah, blah, blah. But frankly, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, I felt that my work was an exercise of interdependence. And actually, it was the health crisis that reinforced my commitment with collectivities and communities. And I think there are certain people among this group that I have been very close with since the beginning of the pandemic. And Aristide is one of these people, that I really admire for the way that they have treated the artistic communities. I have seen this part also in the institutional work, because at that point I was working with MoMA, I was a fellow there, and I saw how even this very slow structure shifted their focus to their communities, that they have been always talking about their needs and desires, but I don't feel that they have been really fulfilling them, because there was, as Natasha was saying before, this question like, what's your logistics? What's your budget? What do you have as resources? So they started asking all these very important questions that they had always somewhere in the surveys, but there was this push to go. At that time, it was the communities with people with disabilities, the queer community, and last but not least, it was the Spanish-speaking community, which was my favorite one. And yeah, I think I have felt the most the sense of the community at that point, after a year working there. And just come back to today, I think the artistic community, this communal spirit, actually supported me since I came back, since September 2020, I think, until today, and reinforced my decision to work independently and collectively. I'm not going to name drop. I think my collaborators know how much I value them. But I wanted to mention another thing, that it's not exactly an artistic project, but it's a form of community that started during the pandemic and now flourishes. And I'm talking about the Union of Contemporary Art Workers that hasn't been launched officially yet, but I paid the lawyer yesterday. So just briefly to say that it has been 1.5 years or almost 2 years that we meet every week to talk about contemporary art workers' rights in Greece, but also working with other initiatives from abroad. And we have been able to do horizontal conversations and taking collective decisions in times that other people have decided that they will follow the norms that they have already been established. So this is not a project, an artistic project in this sense, but I think it's quite important to mention it. And hopefully we will be able soon to present it officially. So anyway, I'd be happy to unwrap all these projects another moment when we're less tired. And I think it was really important to do these introductions and get a sense of each other. And I kind of missed our digital public programming. I think it was very successful, and we understood lots of things about the internet as a public space and as commons. And I take the opportunity to remind us the value of what we have learned this year. So yeah, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eleni. I am part of the union. We have been meeting so many times, so many hours. We have one more person, Dorota Valentinovic. Your W doesn't serve you. I'm really sorry about this.
But in Greece, my last name was spelled with Vita, so that
yes.
would be off the list.
So Dorota is a visual artist. She was part of Occupy 1, and we wanted to invite her for Occupy 3. She's one of the founders of Dienstag Abend, a nomad and cooperative artistic project. Its activities are implemented throughout various locations in the form of numbered editions. Dienstag Abend is considered to be a situation composed by its actors, the local environment, and or the collective mechanisms that are triggered in each of their project editions. I have worked with Dorota in one of these editions, I think in Heraclea. I don't know if you continue them. Do you want to tell us a few words?
Yeah, but actually, you know, that I've been listening, that I realized that yeah, this is a little bit like a past thing, you know, like, I mean, I've been living in different cities and I've just been in need of collective practices somehow. And it's always somehow connected to where I am at some point in my life. And Dienstag Abend was a really important part of it for some time, but I think we all moved on a little bit. But it was a great, so I'm just going to jump through it briefly and move to something more what I'm doing right now. But I mean, it was just like a great experience of like creating this sense of community, like through the act of invitation, basically. And I think this was the friendship, invitation, this sort of like simple gestures of creating connections were mentioned by other speakers earlier on, because how do you expand? Yeah, you just reach out and then you meet someone new and that person reaches out to another person, and then we made different projects. It was I think editions went up to 90, but like what got numbered was not always the same thing. And we did several interventions when we really focused on what it means to intervene, and they were mostly in peripheral areas, like in a village far in Bulgaria or in Belarus, or I mean, Lakos in Heraclea is also not exactly metropolis, you know. So and then we would always take care of finding like local agents, and not just come and install and bring artists from abroad that have a sense of a space or local space, but also very much try to bring people that are from there, even like if it was just making a breakfast or just making a party. But recently we kind of reactivated in Vienna. I had a show there with a friend. It was a different kind of project, and then friends from Dienstag Abend came over and we made a party in a square in the middle of the night, in this kind of pandemic situation where we couldn't go to clubs because people were not vaccinated. And then this became like a complete community thing, because we stayed there the whole night, just like any square in like 20th district in Vienna, and people were coming back from elsewhere and joining, and everybody was playing their own music, and it was like, you know, so heterarchic, like we used to use that name, that it was just like a total Dienstag Abend kind of event. But as the, you know, like as life moves on, and I mean, I was also a member of this FF collective in, it was Berlin based, but it was a feminist network, which didn't really focus on creating any work together, but it was a way of strengthening each other through enlarging the network and increasing visibility. But several things that we did, these 3 temporary autonomous zones, which were great experiences, and they were a little bit relating to this theater of the oppressed kind of idea of when people can allow themselves to act more freely when they're taken out of oppressive environment. I mean, it wasn't therapeutic in that sense, but it was as well. And we did like night circles when we would just stay up all night and talk and dress up and whatever. And it was really strong. It was just really one of the strongest experiences, like in my art career, let's say, this connectedness that we created back then with a little bit of shamanism and like rituals and all sharing experiences. And now I'm also we're starting a new collective here in Poland, because I moved to Poland after I had a baby, which is a plenum of caretakers. And it's a group of mostly women, but not only, who do artwork, but also take care of kids, parents, like others. And we want to expand on this affective labor and this care aspect. And yeah, probably this also had something to do with the pandemic and how we changed the way we think about each other. But I think this is going to be a great new adventure, and I think it's also the way how this title of this talk is structured as public art. And I think, it's actually private art, what we're doing, but it's becoming public. Like it's this negotiation of what's public, what's private all the time. I think it's really important, because these friendships and these invitations is kind of like private stuff, and then you refuse to respect these borders, and you make private public and the other way around. So this is also a Friends of Eirini network, a little bit, and it's doing meaningful things that are stepping way out of her kitchen, right?
Yeah. I'm not very far from my kitchen.
Yeah. So
well, thank you, Dorota. This was very brave of all of you to stay up until now. The ones who are here, the ones who are in the US, you're not very brave. It's very early. So thank you. I think we have to wrap it up otherwise, but I have to say, this is great, because I think we took the time to understand or to look at what everybody is doing here. This is amazing, because we basically have our networks laid out for Occupy 3. Maybe what we can think of is to start just with a Q&A next time with all of these people, Eirini, Shani, Francois Tibor, my amazing team, Melanie. So let's maybe think about doing this. I wrote down all the links and everybody's names. So maybe that's the way we should start, with the same people, and we can do it in February maybe, so that we can catch up and have the conversation now that we know. But I think it was important to understand all the projects, or at least to look at them. I'll send an email with Argi to everyone with all the links, so that you get to actually know each other as well, and not just through me. And anybody wants to say something or ask a question that seems necessary? Sorry.
Did you change clothes during the talk?
I was too warm.
Because I remember you with something red, then suddenly you were green. Okay.
That's the very important question, Alexandra. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. I was wearing a sweater, but I am in Greece, so it was not important. I turned off my camera to do it.
Thank you all for being here. If any of you want to present at this forum, you're welcome to contact Artivism, me, Carolina, Dr. Lake. We do have some dates available, maybe 2 in the spring. And then we have several, and then we'll be booking for the fall of 2022. We would love to have each one of you on, or maybe another one like this. I think, Eirini, you have a date in February or March we locked you in for. So maybe if you want to keep that for a second half, for kind of, reconnecting.
Yes, that would be
here.
great.
Let's do that. We'll keep that date. I'll email you.